Hello and welcome to another edition of FSHD Insights and Guidance. I'm Russ Cleve and I'm here again with my sister, my twin sister, Teresa Cleve.
Hello.
And we would like today to talk about the transition to a wheelchair and what's involved in that, the psychological, mostly, a little bit of physical that's involved in the transition into a wheelchair. So Teresa, can you tell us first, how did you deal with transitioning and how old were you at the time?
Well, I was about 24 at the time, and I'd been falling a lot. And I just, 5 years of time where I was falling, and I'd gotten to the point where I had been wanting to get a scooter or a chair or something for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was married at the time, and my husband was encouraging me not to do that, not to get a wheelchair or a scooter, to just not. He kept saying, "Oh, just don't give up." And it's because he was embarrassed to be seen with me in a wheelchair or a scooter. But it got to the point where I was falling so much, and I was hurting myself when I was falling, and I ultimately ended up breaking my leg from falling. I decided I didn't care what he thought or anybody else thought. I was tired of being homebound for 5 years, homebound, only going to the grocery store or my mom's house, and that was it, because I was falling too much. And so I decided I wanted to get a scooter, but I also couldn't afford to get a scooter, and I wanted to have more freedom to get out and about, and so I looked into vocational rehab through the welfare system.
Mm-hmm.
And because I ultimately also wanted to get back to work, I wasn't working either. And I found that they would offer to train you in a job or offer additional training to what you already have. And they would also help you with mobility, getting a scooter.
Right.
And at that time, it was still in the program that they would help you with money toward a van too. When I first got the scooter, I didn't have a van at all. Anyway. So we got help getting funding for getting the scooter. I think they paid for half of it, and we were able to raise the rest or save it and whatever. So I got into a scooter, but I was still walking around a bit at the time. I could still get in and out to the bathroom. So that's how I started.
Emotionally though, how was it before you transition from walking or even the scooter to a wheelchair? What was involved in the psychological process of getting to that point?
Yeah, well, I was self-conscious. I was a little worried that what people would think, I don't like people staring at me.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually my want to have freedom to get out and about overtook the fear of people looking at me and thinking me caring what they thought. Mm-hmm. So I had to get past caring what people thought.
Thinking about the transition from walking to a wheelchair, and even though I grew up with so much of it in my family, so I was around that quite a bit, and I could see the history of it. I could see what their experiences were, and I knew what was in store for me. So that made it probably a lot easier for me than for Teresa, because
right.
I got the benefit of seeing all that, living through it. And yeah, it was a lot of dread. The last thing I wanted to do was to get into a wheelchair. And I can appreciate that from anybody that is going through it. Not all FSH patients progress into a wheelchair, but many do. And you still have to go forward. You're not going to have the luxury of saying, well, I'll just ignore it and I just will get around fine. It doesn't happen that way because, like Teresa was saying, you want your independence, you want your freedom, and you're not going to get that without some kind of mobility. So for me, yes, I went through that psychological process of considering how embarrassing and how humiliating this might be. Even though I'd grown up with it and was around it all the time, I still felt like that's the last thing I want to do is get into a wheelchair. But when I finally did, I got to tell you, it really helped my mobility. The independence and freedom was just incredible, and you move around a lot faster. Yeah, at first you run into stuff with your power chair, but once you get used to it, it really does become your legs, and you can move about all over the place. I do recommend, and probably Teresa does too, when you do get a chair, that it raises up for you.
Yes.
It's very important.
And that it's adjustable with the back.
Both of our chairs do this, and it helps to reach top shelves of grocery stores,
in the cupboard,
or any store you're into,
in your
or in your
kitchen.
house, kitchen house, cupboard. It goes up even further. Teresa's does as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you'll be surprised how much a chair will help you. Not just getting around, but in being able to reach stuff and being able to move things. I moved all kinds of furniture in my house.
Yeah, I bulldoze all the time.
The chair. You're not supposed to use them that way, but I tell you, you don't have a choice when you're in a chair and you need to get things done.
Yeah.
So it's a great sense of freedom, flexibility, and independence. You don't need to be too concerned about it. Obviously, you're going to have some, but it actually is a good idea, and it's going to be very helpful for you. It's going to help you get around much better, much quicker. The only other thing you would need to add to the wheelchair we found was that you really need a ramp van.
Yes.
And I know those can get expensive. They're a lot more than the standard van, but they really are what you need to go with the chair to make your independence happen and your freedom to be even more expanded.
Yeah.
So the chair is great, but adding the van is even better.
Yeah, an automatic door with an automatic
Power everything,
power
one
everything.
button. Yeah.
And be aware that there are grants out there that you can apply for
Yes.
to help with funding with getting your vehicle equipped with the right kind of equipment.
Right. And there's different programs. I went through a program that, because I was working at the time, they would sponsor me. They would help pay for my van and my wheelchair, along with the insurance that covered the chair, obviously not the van, but between those two, it can really help reduce the price of everything.
Yeah, and everything costs so much more.
Yeah, it's outrageous,
Yeah.
especially for medical equipment. But it will really improve your life. It will really expand your opportunities.
It's worth the expense.
For me, it was imperative because I was working and I had to drive into work every day, and so I had to have something to do that.
Well, it's a way to get to work on your own, and the more automatic everything is, they've got the ramp. You just push a button, the door opens, it comes out. They've got those tie downs for wheelchairs that you can be built into the floor of your vehicle. They've got all kinds of cool gadgets and stuff for whatever it is to adapt to your ability to drive or not. Now, also please remember, there will be a time when you get to where you can't drive yourself.
It's true.
And I got to that point right in the middle of driving, when my leg wouldn't get to the brake at all.
It's a good point. Make sure you got a backup plan for any car you're driving.
Yeah, backup.
The hand controls are always the best idea. From what I understand, it depends on what state you're in, but it does require a doctor's prescription.
And training.
A little bit of training,
Yeah.
yeah. Training would be good. But at least having even just having the handbrake available that
Yes.
close to you is really helpful, and it gives you a good sense of security that you can still stop the car.
Yeah, because that was scary.
That that would be very scary. So the transitioning into the wheelchair has its emotional costs, has its physical costs, because you become even weaker more quickly because you're not using those muscles you were before.
Right.
Kind of like leg braces, the same idea. The less you're using the muscle, the less you're going to have. The transitioning is difficult, but you can do it. You'll have to do it. You won't have a choice at some point. And if you're like us, not every FSH patient is like us, but
Right, but
if
I
you're
mean, it's a declining disease, so you're going to decline.
remember there are tools out there that'll help make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, like
Kind of
the grab stick is a good tool,
Yeah,
cups with handles on it,
right.
lids.
We'll do, eventually we may do a video about hacks and tricks that work for us as we've gone through our progression, and try to pass it on to folks to make things a little bit easier, things like gripping and
Using scissors, cutting things. That's
Right.
hard.
yeah, just things that'll help with dexterity. So thanks for tuning in, and you'll see us again in our next episode.